My name is Christopher Turner, General Manager, Head Esports Coach for B Southern University and Southern University Laboratory School.
And Baxter, Assistant Commissioner for Strategic Communications for the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, better known as the CIAA.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Cash, Managing Director of the NARMA Group, LLC, also professor at Johnson C. Smith University, the first HBCU to offer a full-blown esports and gaming initiative, including club team and curriculum and lab. Also, Chief Development and Business Officer for Community, an HBCU-driven esport education platform out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Good evening, Cyrus Russ, Alcon State University, Senior Associate Athletic Director, and Esports Director here on campus.
All right, so my first question to you guys is, what is esports and how is it transforming HBCUs and how we move in this community? Because it is fairly new.
Well, basically, esports, first of all, I think you need to dial back to gaming. And gaming has been around for over 50 years. Actually, if you're really looking at computer science areas, it's been around since the 50s, but really gained popularity in the 70s with Pong. For some of those that don't know, now you know. But then that graduated, of course, with arcade games, Madden and everything else, Sega and cartridges. Esports is just electronic sports, is competitive gaming. And again, it transcends across platforms. But the opportunity, I would say, for HBCU specifically, when I was researching it, and really I kind of stumbled on it at JCSU along with Dr. Bernadette Lawson-Williams, we found out that at the time, just 2.5 years ago, there were over 240 predominantly white institutions with some type of esports program, curriculum, club team, and or lab. There were 0 HBCUs at that time. So we knew, again, as African Americans, we had a need state and an opportunity. And then the other enlightening piece is that approximately 83% of African Americans 18 to 24 are gaming on a weekly basis versus 72% for general audience, and we represent 2% of the industry. So again, I feel a lot of people, especially a lot of people on this call, understood the opportunity to bring in esports and gaming into the HBCU realm. And I'm so excited. Whereas just 2 years ago, we had 0. We'll probably have at least 7 programs that are doing something functional by fall 21.
Yeah, I think John hit the nail on the head as far as esports and gaming. I mean, people have been gaming for years. Even when I was coming up as a young lad, we were always on the sticks playing Madden and different things. And I think, esports kind of became the buzzword over the last couple of years. It's grown tremendously. But for us at the conference level, it was just an opportunity to, again, kind of grow our brand, introduce our student athletes and students to new opportunities, new ways to engage, professional development, career resources, educational resources. And so it was just a new kind of and the pandemic definitely helped with that. We have been talking about it for the last 18 to 24 months. And we really got hot and heavy with it probably within the last 9 to 12, but we've grown so much within that time frame. So I just think it's a great opportunity for growth for HBCUs. And so we have 12 HBCU institutions within our conference as a whole. And so this opportunity working with folks like John Cash, Dr. Lawson Williams over at Johnson C. Smith and the likes, Chris at Southern as well, just finding different opportunities to where we can kind of engage HBCUs and find opportunities for access and resources. It's kind of been, it's been important now, and we've been growing fast, ever since. I mean, we have at least all 12 of our schools have been involved in esports in some shape, form, or fashion over the, this time frame that I talked about. But we have at least 10 involved in some type of league currently. So it's growing, and we're just getting started. Once we put our stamp on it and kind of put our spin, our cultural spin on it, it's the sky's the limit. So
I think for me, everybody knows that it's competitive gaming. That's what esports is. That's the core of it. John gave you the history, and Ben gave it to you from a conference standpoint. But here at Southern, we want to focus on not only the competitive version of what esports is, but building those pipelines and building those careers around it. You know, this industry is not going anywhere. We want to focus in on our School of Business, our media department, our student media department, our nursing center when it comes down to health and wellness. Even our law center for hosting this event. You know, I don't know any other law school in the country that has the esports initiative. So it's really a system-wide, you know, push and initiative for us. And, you know, we're just excited to be in the space. And, you know, a lot of HBCUs, I see them adopting esports, you know, not only for recruitment, but retention and just building programs and bringing people back to HBCUs, man. But it's exciting to be on this panel, and it's exciting to, you know, to see what my peers are going to say today.
So I don't think I can offer a different perspective. I think my three predecessors did a great analysis in summing up what esports is and what it offers, even if at the institutional level, at the conference level. But I will say this, at Alcon, when we looked at this 2 years ago, when we started our esports group, and I looked at it, I was like, man, this esports is just a perfect merger of technology, culture, and entertainment. And what we look to gain from our esports organization here is, of course, open up opportunities for our students here on campus. Also, as a form of recruiting and a form of retention, as Chris mentioned earlier. But when we talk about opportunities, you know, esports is a multi-million-dollar industry. And as we're well aware of, the esports championships attract more viewers and more dollars than the Super Bowl. So it's in hopes that I want to see some of our students who are participating in esports now go on to achieve those type of careers in esports, where they're either competitively gaming or they're either working on the entertainment side of the esports industry, or just continuing to shape the culture for esports. So those are the expectations I have, or I see for, I call them my esports pioneers here at Alcorn State University, because we started 2 years ago, and I just it was awesome. And I would like to take a minute to thank my president for having the foresight and having the vision to support that when I approached her about starting an esports program here on campus, and all the other campus support systems that have been supportive of our esports program, because it takes a lot to start and run an esports program on campus. And it's nothing that I could do by myself without the help of all the other support systems on campus.
I appreciate y'all for all of that, but I also appreciate y'all for being the trailblazers on your campuses and in your communities to push this esports initiative, because a guy like me, I've been playing Madden since I was 12 years old every day. And this is something I've never thought I'd be able to do. And to see like money, scholarships, recognition come from it is beautiful. So I appreciate y'all for that. But I have a question directed at Ben. So I see what you're doing with your conference levels and things of that nature, but what have you been doing with the pros and the cons towards all of this? Because you said it has been going for a little bit.
Yeah, excuse me. So the pros are definitely just the growth opportunities and just the opportunities in general for our students, you know, for our schools. For a lot of our schools, you know, this is brand new to them, you know what I'm saying? So outside of John and Dr. Lawson over at John C. Smith, most of them hadn't even considered, you know, putting together esports programs or being involved in competitive gaming from their standpoint. And so the pros for us is the growth opportunity and the opportunity that presents. I mean, we've been presented with so many different new opportunities just within the last 3 months for just specifically to esports and gaming. That it's been great. And so just access to things that we never even thought of, or we never thought of, you know, prior to. The cons obviously is always going to be resources. I mean, you know, finding resources for, and again, COVID kind of threw us a curveball with, you know, folks being on campus and being able to be active like we want to, but just having the resources to be able to meet in person and have labs and things of that nature is one of our driving forces behind this. Is eventually having labs on all of our campuses, all of our member schools campuses. And so a lot of them don't have labs dedicated to esports, STEM, etc. So That's one of our driving forces is providing that opportunity of being able to provide scholarships to help with recruitment, things of that nature. And so, yeah, so the cons is just that it's a learning process, and two, it's so new for our campuses that they're not 100% sure how to approach it. But we give them information, almost daily that can help guide them in the right direction. So.
Okay, so piggybacking off of what you just said, like I agree with you with the opportunities and everything of that nature, but like far as recruiting, how do you get more students to get involved? Because me personally at the Southern Esports, I'm trying to push it, but it's hard teaching people like, hey, you can really do this, because people don't really have confidence to think that they can be a pro gamer or even win at the collegiate level because they don't know about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the educational component comes into play. Just having these type of sessions to where we can talk about the different things that we're doing, exposing, our students to different workshops. And let's be honest, I mean, our kids are already playing on the daily. You said you've been playing since you were 12. I've probably been playing longer than that. You know what I'm saying? I was probably playing back when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, daily, so it's people play the games, but they just don't recognize or realize the opportunities that exist within gaming, even outside of just the competitive gaming part. I mean, you can, from a STEM standpoint, you have engineers, people, the marketing side of things. It's the possibilities are endless. So just being able to take advantage of those opportunities and educate them, educate the students about those opportunities is important. I mean, as John mentioned, 83% of our kids are playing the games, but only 1 or 2% are actually working full time in that in the industry. So just finding ways to be able to get them access and into those opportunities is key.
Thank you for that. All right. So Cyrus, can you tell us about esports and how it impacted Alcorn's environment?
So I can tell you just from a growth perspective, even during the pandemic, right now we have about 60, 65 kids in our esports group. And so not all of those kids are competitive gamers, but it has allowed us to build an infrastructure in our organization where we have kids who they want to do the production, right? Or if they just want to come and do the event setup, or they just want to be in the room. They just want to be in the room, in the environment, just to see what's going on, what's happening. So it's been contagious on our campus with a group of students. We started with a small survey just to gauge the interest. And when COVID hit last spring, we had just held our first on-campus competition right before COVID. And I thought that during COVID and when we came back that we would kind of lose that momentum, and we wouldn't have the same capacity. But once we opened the doors back up in the fall, we were actually able to have a on-campus event in the fall, and the students turned out, showed up. We had our own sponsored our own tournament. It was great. We had a team of students that came in, converted the room into an esports dome. And so for me to see that type of passion and excitement from my students, if you see the logo behind me, the students even designed the logo, right? So the excitement level is high here, and I'm looking forward to the future because we got a group of new students coming in, freshmen, who are looking for new opportunities and new play, and just having the SWAC season start this spring is another level of excitement for us.
Man, with the new students, and I know Gorman, Mississippi, like I've been a few times, so it's like it's not really a big area. How is that affecting everyone around y'all? Because I know Alcon has a large presence in that Mississippi area. So
Alcon is, again, you've been here, so Alcon, we're our own little city, own little town, own little environment, and we have a lot of smaller towns around the campus. So as we look to grow esports, we look to help those schools around us, the high schools around us, develop their esports program as well, so that they can be feeders to the esports program here at Alcon. And that was one of the decisive factors in us in starting the esports program, because the Mississippi High School Activity Association already was sponsoring esports, so that we saw that we had the opportunity for students and to connect with students who are already engaged in esports at the scholastic level. So we want to, again, help the schools in our area build those programs, because what stood out on that list was none of the schools in the immediate radius of Alcorn had an esports program.
All right. I appreciate you for that. Thank you. So going back to John, it's like, I'm just thinking about your intro and how you talked about how you were the first in this era. And it's like, being the first has a lot of pros and cons about it. But looking back at it, what would you do in hindsight compared to what you have done?
Looking back at it is, I wouldn't have really done anything different. Again, I'm an HBCU graduate, undergrad at Howard, and then I see at my part of my service and giving back is giving back to my HBCU community. So I've been teaching at JCSU since I moved on a corporate gig to Charlotte, and JCSU reached out, and I was just teaching there, teaching in the business school, teaching in sport entertainment. And, you know, I just came across it again, just doing my regular research, looking at industry trends and opportunities. And it was just a mess that, again, African-Americans are falling behind in the industry, whether it's investment banking, fintech, cybersecurity. We need to make sure we're equalizing things on both a political front and a business front. That's why I'm so excited. If you guys heard the news today of approximately 72 senior African-American executives taking a stand against this Georgia voting bill measure. I mean, that's history has just been made today. So I had to take a little pause for that. If you haven't heard about it, check it out. But for me, I wouldn't have done anything different. We had great support again, like Cyrus mentioned, from our executives. The president understood it. He's a businessman and lawyer, so he understood it. Dr. Lawson Williams, a tenured professor at Johnson C. Smith, she had the knack of how to push it administratively. So all I had to do was work with her on curriculum and then also the elements. And it's a twofold approach. One is the students. You guys are the essence and the seeds that drive the program. It doesn't matter. I mean, our students are, you're gaming in your dorm rooms, your off-campus apartments, or mostly at home right now. So that's going to go on. Why not provide a structured opportunity to continue that and drive camaraderie? Then we, as administrators, educators, whether it's at the league level, athletic department, student affairs, conferences, instructors, we are going to put together the curriculum. And I came up with this concept when I was putting it together. And it's about education plus empowerment plus employment. That's what esports provides. And what success looks like is securing internships and opportunities to drive business and education opportunities for our students. So I wouldn't do anything different, but I wanted to give you a little bit of track record there of how, again, I'm HBCU for life. We have to continue to support our organizations. I'm very excited what's happening on the athletic front as well as the education front, and how we're getting the recognition as quality education opportunities that we are.
I appreciate that. And like, at this point in time, just because the NBA and the NFL are pushing HBCUs so much, like it's more eyes on us right now. So with the eyes being on us, how would you deal with the limited resources or budget we have when it comes to equipment? And then also, I want to ask about PC versus console, because I'm an Xbox type of guy.
Well, I'm gonna let the administrators go first. Those, you know, people working in that area.
I'm not necessarily admin, but I work closely with them. And so, like for me, I think leveraging private partners, you know, going to the companies, you know, with all the social justice things going on and everybody talking about, you know, inclusion and accessibility, it's time for us, like these HBCUs, to go to these corporate companies and call them out on what they say they believe in. And so you leverage that with, you know, how many students you have on campus, you know, developing, you know, a Twitch, you know, being a part of leagues such as community, and, you know, building partnerships with, you know, companies like Exposure, where, you know, they do production and education the whole line. But, you know, you have to build up your program to the point where you can build, you know, a media deck or a sponsorship deck and approach these companies like you're truly a business, but with the mindset of benefiting the students. It shouldn't be about anything else. It should be about the students and what you can gravitate and what you can bring to them to make the program better, to make more accessibility and opportunities for the students.
I appreciate that. So with Coach Chris Turner, man, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart because you're the one who gave me my opportunity to get off this field. But I see how much you do, talking about from the pre-K kids all the way up to the graduate and PhD students, and it's like, how do you handle it?
My wife's mad right now, man. I'm cheating on her with esports. But on a serious note, I mean, I have people in place that are not really in the spotlight. You know, I get the interviews and get, you know, all the ad time, but, you know, I have a supporting cast. You know, on the K through 12 side, my director and principal has been there every stride of the way. He's allowed me to kind of go, you know, with no shackles on and make these deals and form these partnerships with people that we're bringing in, you know, and just like we have a student-centered program across the board, you know, building, you know, your program over at Southern, you know, with you and a few others. You know, we just started in September, and, you know, I got to put this out there for Cyrus. I got 67 since September. So we got 67 students on board. And so, you know, I'm going to cheer today when it's 100, 200, and everybody has a job, everybody has accessibility, everybody's going to be, you know, learning something. And that's the key thing. Like, we can game, we can compete, but what did you walk away with? You know, and that's the question that I ask myself every day. And so I handle it, man, because I love y'all, man. I love helping kids. I wouldn't have never got into education if it wasn't for that. And so I think that's what keeps me going, man. And to be quite frank with you, the industry moves so fast that it keeps me on a pivot. And so I just love that energy too.
All right, I appreciate that. And it's love right back to you. It's reciprocated, I promise. But going back to Ben, what type of sponsorships have you found, and how does somebody looking to start a program as we have find those same things?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first major ones we got was through community, and I guess let me just start by saying all sponsorship isn't dollars and cents. I mean, a lot of times it's just resources and access to information. So one of the first partnerships, and I like to call them partnerships as opposed to sponsorships because sponsorship sounds so transactional. But one of the first partnerships that we secured in the esports space was with community, working with John, working with Ryan, Chris, and the team over there. And just for me, it really helped provide guidance within the esports business. We kind of educated them on how we operate on the conference side, and they kind of, you know, show us the way through, you know, through the esports path as far as from a business standpoint, and just introducing us to different players and things of that nature. So that was one of the big ones. But I would say, as far as securing those type of partnerships and sponsorships, for starters, it has to be authentic. You talked about earlier about, you know, the NBA, NFL, and all the exposure that they're providing to HBCUs with the different programming that they're doing. You know, those partnerships have to be authentic. It has to be one of those things. A lot of times companies come in and do what we call checkbox. So they'll come through and partner with you just to check off a box. And so, you know, throughout the conversations, as you deal with different corporate folks, you have to, as Chris said, you kind of got to check them a little bit just to make sure that it is authentic. It is something that's going to be long lasting. It's not just a one-off checkbox thing to say, you know, I'm in with the HBCUs because of the, you know, the journey that we're on right now with social justice and things of that nature. So I think just having the right conversations, knowing what you're looking for as far as a you know, a program or organization, and again, just developing authentic relationships. You know, being truthful and honest, and not running after every dollar that comes about. I mean, there have been a lot of different folks that have come to us about esports and doing different partnerships that we've turned away because it didn't feel right or it wasn't authentic. You know, sometimes you can see the snakes in the weeds, and you got to just pick up on them and keep it pushing and stay the course. Trust the process. I hate this. I know it's kind of cliche. People always say trust the process, but it's true. You got to trust what you know, and trust the path that you're on, and things become the way that you hope that they will. So.
All right, I appreciate that. I got one more question for everybody. So how do you guys see esports involving and evolving the HBCU community?
Guess I'll go. I see it involving, as far as like I mentioned earlier, recruitment and retention. I think this is something for the first time. I've said it before. I'm gonna say it again. This is the first time in the history that we don't have to have $1 million facility. We don't have to have the best, equipment. You don't need a bunch of trainers. We're talking about less than probably, I would say on the low end, 100,000 to 200,000 in the esports arena, and a few more dollars in building a curriculum like John is doing. And you're kind of good to go. Finding somebody to really champion that program. And we can go and play these PWI. We don't, for once, we don't have to be segregated. We have our own conferences and we're proud of who we are. But for once, the playing field is equal. And so, it's just a matter of us educating ourselves, getting the right equipment, getting the top tier internet put in place, and having everything that we need for the students to start, competing, and not only competing, like we said before, doing their own production, doing their own shoutcasting, building code, whatever it is within the industry, making sure that we have the resources there available. And I think the sky's the limit as far as HBCUs and having sports initiatives. I think it's going to change the conversation. I think, I was born in the 80s, I'm 36, back in the early 90s, record numbers at HBCUs. And I think with everything that's going on right now on top of aggressive esports it's only a matter of time before we get back to those numbers, man, with esports being one of those top initiatives.
Yeah, I'll jump in, I guess. I think in terms of involvement, Chris hit the nail on the head. Just being able to have access to the opportunities. We were just a part of an announcement a few days ago with GCN and Van Wagner. They're doing a large tournament setting with 10 different conferences, and we just so happen to be the only HBCU conference and the only Division II conference involved. So opportunities like that come about are huge. And just taking advantage of those opportunities. And again, the kids have to be willing to be involved. And none of this happens without student involvement. We can talk till we're blue in the face about wanting to be involved in esports, but if the students don't want to be involved or aren't active, it goes nowhere. And in terms of involvement or evolving, like Chris said, the sky's the limit. Once we put our cultural spin on some things and do what we do as a culture, I don't think esports will have seen anything like it. You know what I'm saying? Especially from an HBCU standpoint, and even Black culture in general. But from an HBCU standpoint, some of the elements that we bring that are unique to HBCUs and the lights, I think is gonna be crazy. It's gonna be a movie, as the young kids like to say. It's gonna be a movie. So just stay tuned and just buckle up.
So I'll just say, as we build these, as we continue to build out the esports landscape for HBCUs, and we see the competitive environment or the competitive nature of HBCUs in general, we'll see some of those rivalries start to build themselves up in the esports area as well, and so that will just increase the fan involvement, increase the student involvement. And I can see esports evolving to the point at HBCUs where it's almost like a football game, a classic. So, because the future is there, we still don't have our first HBCU esports dome. We still don't have our first HBCU esports arena. And so, imagine when we start to have those arenas on campus, and we got a Alcon Jackson State or Southern Jackson State competing against each other. North Carolina A&T against the North Carolina Central, just surrounding esports in those type of venues. So we've grown quite a bit in the first few years, but we have so much growth left to do in this space. And to comment on what Ben said, the culture, that's part of our culture. So we haven't even put our stamp on the esports landscape yet. It's still there. All those aspects, the bands, the percussion sets, all those aspects that we're known for, that's so unique about the HBCU culture. Those things are going to shift over into the esports arena as we continue to evolve. And you can't say sky's the limit. Keep hearing that sky's the limit. The growth is there. All those resources and all those potential fillers in the esports arena.
Bring it on home, John.
A lot of times, first of all, I'm on the phone with a lot of innovators and leaders, and I'm thankful for that because I love to learn, and we're all continuous learners, and you guys are successful because of that. What Cyrus has done in less than 2 years, what Chris has done, 60 and 40 plus students is fabulous. So remember this, history is really historic when you're in the middle of it. And that's what you guys are doing. So keep it moving. I always start my classes and conversations with students about ownership. We understand that if you don't own something, you are not in the game. I want us to have more ownership in the esports area. We need to have our own teams. We need to have our own multimedia right companies for the Learfields and the JMIs and the IMGs and the bandwagoners, and run our own leagues. We need to develop our own players, software engineers, gamification. Independent gaming is the hugest opportunity that we can be pushing for our students to really drive empowerment. And that's what I see involving and evolving HBCU esports and gaming. And keep this in mind right now. The next White House HBCU initiative is coming up in September this year. 2 years ago, there was an esports track, but it was like a water sandwich. There was nothing there because a lot of HBCUs on the education front were not in there. Guess how that's going to be this year? We're working with the White House HBCU initiative right now to help put together an agenda along with the UNCF so we can be inclusive. Now, I want all my students not just to be gaming, but to gain education. And then for those HBCUs who want to make the investment, because maybe some don't, they can find their specific track of education, whether it's going to be a STEM track, gamification, graphic design, traditional business, whether you're looking at the industry endemic or non-endemic, there are opportunities for us. So I am just very excited. And you know how we are with our beloved HBCUs. You know, sometimes it takes those leaders, those innovators, like these people on this call right now, these gentlemen, to really push that lever and to lead, and then others will follow, right? So one thing that I know that I need to do a better job of and carve out more time is to have conversations like this from these leaders to learn, because as the tide comes in, all ships will rise.
Thank you all for that. I appreciate it. And thank you all for being on the forefront of this, because this is only the beginning of everything we can all accomplish.
And thank you for your hosting, Mr. Edwards,
Yes,
and
sir.
doing your thing. We appreciate it. You are the future, man. So keep it moving.
Thank you all for answering every question I had. And thank you for being the Trailblazers in this HBCU esports front. And this is Mako Edwards signing off with John Cash, Ben Baxter, Coach Chris Turner, and Cyrus Russ.